about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
And now for our feature presentation.
Balls Deep with Devin Jovan.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Balls Deep. It's episode 33. I'd like to start off by saying, obviously we haven't been recording lately because of all the holidays, among some personal things as well. But we're getting back to recording. Happy holidays from the Balls Deep family. Happy New Year. From us to you guys. It's a fresh new year, our first episode of the new year, so we're a little bit excited. But with that being said, we're going to be starting this episode up. We're going to be talking about some MMA news, specifically the UFC, a little bit of Bellator, and Professional Fight League, I believe. Tony Ferguson lost to Charles Oliveira last weekend on Saturday. What do you think about that fight? Do you think it was the rise of Tony Ferguson, or the rise of Charles Oliveira, or the fall of Tony Ferguson? What do you think's to come in that division?
I don't know, man. And immediately after the fight happened, I texted you. I'm like, is Tony Ferguson done? Because it's the second fight that he was lost in a row. But this fight in particular, he didn't look like himself. And there's nothing taken away from Oliviero. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry if I butchered it. But Ferguson, he just looked like he was not there mentally. Similar to how when Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holmes, then she fought again, and she didn't look like herself. She was physically there, but mentally she wasn't there. She just didn't seem as prepared or whatnot. He was so far gone. I think Gaethje beat the shit out of him so bad that he just forgot how to fight, because Oliveira tore that ass up from bell to bell. It was. So I'm gonna say it's a little bit of both, but I don't think Ferguson's all the way done yet. I want to give him a fighter's chance because he before this 2-fight losing streak, he was on I think it was 15-fight win streak or something like that. So yeah. I think he could bounce back, but he's got to look better than he did this past fight. But Oliveira, he looks like a problem in that division. I know Cormier said that even if this fight happened earlier, before Ferguson fought Gaethje, he still felt like Ferguson would have lost. Oliveira is that good. So who do I think Oliveira fights next? I think he fights Gaethje, and I think the winner would essentially fight the winner of the McGregor-Poirier fight, and hopefully that would come up with the winner or the championship, either the interim title or the person who fights Khabib next if he doesn't actually retire. But approaching the situation of as if he does retire, the two winners would essentially fight for the belt. Just because I feel like Gaethje's not going to wait till McGregor and Poirier fight to then get opportunity. And Oliveira, even though he's going to fight regardless, I don't think he wants to wait either. Gaethje is a fighter. He's going to want to fight. So I think he's up for the challenge against Oliveira. So I think those two fights are going to be very interesting. As for Ferguson, I don't know what's next for him, but I just really hope that he bounces back because he seems like he's on the downspin, or he's spiraling down, similar to forget his name. Off the top of my head, you don't like him. You said on the show. You said he should retire like 4 times.
Oh, Tyrone.
Yeah, Woodley. So Woodley was a champion, and he's been spiraling down too. So hopefully both of them can bounce back. But Ferguson, hopefully he bounces back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit of. I don't really think it's a little bit of both. I think it's more so just Charles Oliveira, I guess. I mean, people forget. I mean, Charles Oliveira just submitted Kevin Lee, who's obviously a really talented fighter as well, a contender in his own right. Um, at least previously he was. I mean, he's no scrub, so it's no surprise that he beat Ferguson. Although when you see a guy like Ferguson, who was just fighting for a championship against Gaethje and was supposed to be fighting Khabib, um, it's a little surprising to see him kind of lose a couple fights in a row. But it's not shocking, especially because I mean we kind of already knew. Everybody said prior to his fight against Gaethje, Ferguson was the one risking everything, and we're kind of seeing that now. I mean, he lost to Gaethje and now loses to Oliveira. It's like he's kind of spiraling down. Although I think he will turn it around. He's a great fighter. I don't think he's even close to done yet. It's just the way the fight game is. He took a huge risk fighting Gaethje before, Khabib, and we're kind of seeing it now. So I think he'll be all right, though. I think he'll be able to, keep competing with those guys. It's just Oliveira's time right now to just kind of, go through the ranks and try to win the championship himself. Maybe he'll be the first champion after Khabib. We'll never know. We got to wait and see.
Yeah, Oliveira is definitely a dark horse to be the next champion. It is his time to shine. But my thing is, like, Ferguson, it's different between losing the fight and getting dominated the entire fight.
True.
Like, he did not win, I don't think, a round. Like, Oliveira controlled that fight from beginning to end. And I think maybe if his corner stopped the fight in the Gaethje fight sooner, he wouldn't be as mentally fucked up. He might deny this, but it is pretty obvious that he's fucked up mentally. I think if they stopped the fight, then his confidence would have been it wouldn't have been diminished as much. Yeah. Even though he says he wanted the fight to go all the way, it can fuck with you. So I think his confidence going into this fight would have been a lot higher should he have not got fucking mollywopped against Gaethje. And I think he looked worse in in this fight than he did against Gaethje. So I think it's more of a confidence issue.
Yeah, it might be. But with that being said, a little bit more UFC news. Yoel Romero and Anthony Pettis no longer a part of the UFC. Two of the bigger names amongst plenty of fighters who were let go of by the UFC. At the end of this year, the UFC Dana White was already saying he wanted to make a bunch of cuts to a bunch of fighters. So it's a surprise to see that two of those guys gone. More specifically, Pettis, who it seemed like left under his own power to go sign somewhere else. But not shocking again. So we really don't know what's going on with Pettis yet in the Professional Fight League. But we do know that Romero's first fight in Bellator could possibly be former light heavyweight Anthony Rumble Johnson, who at one point or another was actually supposed to fight John Jones for a title a few years ago. Before that ended up, obviously getting canceled due to everything John Jones was going through. But how are you feeling about this fight? You looking forward to it? You know what I mean?
Well,
who do you got winning if this comes to fruition?
I'm gonna start with Anthony Pettis. So Anthony Pettis is my favorite. He was my favorite, or he still is my favorite fighter he's not part of the UFC anymore. He was my favorite fighter in the UFC.
In mixed martial arts.
Yeah, so he's my favorite fighter in mixed martial arts now. I have to, I guess, make it more broad. But he's just so flashy, and that's why I enjoyed him. So it just threw me off. So it came to me as a surprise that he left because he just won. Like, literally, he just won on the last card he fought on. And it was very convincingly, too. So it came as a surprise that they kind of parted ways. I guess his contract was up, and he just decided to go his separate ways. Just because I think the UFC just wasn't giving him what he wanted. You can say, but the Romero one definitely threw me for a loop a lot more. And Dana White just came out and said he's lost however many fights in a row, yada yada. But my thing is, he might have lost the fights in a row, but he was competitive in all of them. So, and he's still one of the best light was it? He's in lightweight or welterweight. He's still one of the best fighters in his division in the world. So it came as a surprise. But when I heard about the matchup against Anthony Rumble Johnson, I would have to say I'm going to pick Joel for the simple fact that we don't know what to expect from Anthony Johnson. He's been out of the octagon for a while, so we don't know if he's going to look fresh or he's going to look rusty. So I'm going to just go with the one who's been active in the time gap, but I would have loved to watch Anthony Johnson versus John Jones, and he even said it that they were good friends, and that's probably the one regret he had his entire career. Just because that was his opportunity to shine, because he would be fighting the pound for pound best fighter in the world. So we won't ever see it, but that would have been an interesting fight, even though I would have still had John Jones winning.
Yeah. To speak on Pettis, I think it's a good move for him. Ultimately, I think he looked really good as of late. Because there was a really big gap in his career that he almost looked like a shell of his former self as a fighter. And he seemed like he was getting that groove back. We even saw him fight really competitively against a guy like Ferguson, who he ended up losing to, obviously, because he got injured during that fight. But he looked really good. Looked like he could win that fight until he got hurt. So I don't think him winning a championship again in the UFC was out of the realm of possibility. However, I do think he maybe felt like he had a better opportunity going elsewhere, maybe money-wise, fight-wise, especially with that division being so, crowded the way it is now. Yeah. It probably just felt like a better opportunity for him. So good luck to him. I do love Anthony Pettis, and I look forward to seeing him fight in the Professional Fight League. And as for Rumble Johnson and Yoel Romero, it's really exciting because we know that Romero is just a brawler. And people are terrified of the guy because he's literally the soldier of God. Like anybody, I don't care. If somebody's nickname is the soldier of God, I'm not fighting him. But
I mean, he looks like he belongs in God of War.
No way. But with that being said, judging, obviously we haven't seen Rumble Johnson fight in a little bit, but judging by what we've seen in the UFC, he also is a man to be feared. We know he's got crazy knockout power. And I think where Yoel lacks in the technique and the skill, I think Rumble Johnson makes up for that. I do think if we see a similar Rumble Johnson to what we used to see in the UFC, if he's not rusty, like you say, he might be. I think, honestly, he wins that fight. He's just a little bit more... He's just more technical a fighter. He's more... He's different than Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero will, strike the fear in you. He'll push you. He'll brawl with you. He'll put it on you. But he's not technical in the sense that Rumble Johnson is. He's not going to make a fight. It's not just relying on his power, but also relying on his ability to connect shots and things like that. So I think it'll be a good fight if it happens. I hope it happens. I definitely look forward to it.
So I'm not saying Rumble Johnson is a scrub. Like. Yeah. I like Rumble Johnson. I think, granted, if we see his old self, I think he would win too. But it was just there's so many questions surrounding him. We don't know what to expect from 100%. Him. I'm just gonna go with the more recent or the more active guy as of late, which would be Romero. Especially if it comes to a striking battle, that someone's getting knocked out. Yeah, I don't know who, but it'll be interesting. And then as for Anthony Pettis, I think he just seen himself like the UFC doesn't really view him as a main carder anymore or main eventer, especially with that division being so stacked. He probably felt like he was better, like you said, elsewhere. But I don't know, man. The UFC, he's looked really well. And with the time gap you said, where he looked like a shell of himself, he explained in an interview like he was going through like depression. He was like addicted to alcohol and drugs and shit like that. So he was spiraling down in his life, not just his career. But he said he's been sober for however many years. He feels the best he has in a while. And it shows. And he said the biggest regret of his career so far would probably be taking the Ferguson fight. And because he took it on such short notice. I guess he was he was on vacation with his family because his brother's birthday, and he was drunk. And Dana White called him, and he goes, "Hey, you want to fight Ferguson in 5 weeks or whatever?" And he was like, fuck yeah. But he said he wishes he had more time to prepare for that fight because he felt like he could have bounced back, or he had a chance of winning that fight, and if he won, his career would have been
Like I said,
rejuvenated.
I think he would have won that fight. I mean, the way at least it was looking, I think he was winning that fight until he
He's
got
not
hurt. I mean, you know what I mean?
and he was handicapped.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're gonna shift over to a different sport. We got some college football news. To begin, the Final Four college football playoffs have been announced. There were some disputes on who was selected. Mainly just one team in particular that was selected. So we're gonna get your thought on that. So the first seed was Bama. No surprise to that. They've looked dominant all year round. And they have two Heisman candidates. We'll talk more about that too. Two was Clemson, mainly because they had questions about Ohio State's schedule. So they didn't want to, even though Ohio State's undefeated, they really want to give them the nod over Clemson, especially with Clemson's blowout victory against Notre Dame. And three is Ohio State. So people were questioning on whether they should make the playoffs at all because of their schedule, just because it was so easy. But my thing is, you can't really go against that because COVID kind of fucked everything up where they could only play within their conference. So you can't really doubt them because of the conference that they play in. But I'm glad they made it because they definitely deserve it. They're definitely one of the best teams in the country at the moment. But I'm also happy that we get to see a Clemson versus Ohio State game again, just because my guy Justin Fields, he can get his revenge. Because Ohio State did get
Ohio State team needs to get their revenge.
Yeah, they got robbed last year. I'm tired of people saying that Trevor Lawrence beat the best defense in college football last year, which was Ohio State, because it shouldn't have happened. The refs helped them a little too much, and Justin Fields wasn't 100% healthy. So
I still think about that fumble that we recovered. I believe we returned it for 6, and then they said it wasn't a fumble, and it was showed clear as day in the replay that it was a fumble. Obviously, I'm a Ohio State fan, so you call me biased, but I feel like everybody saw the same thing that day.
And then Wade, the shot Wade had on Lawrence, they ejected him for it.
It was a lot of
So, anyways, we get a rematch. Hopefully, Ohio State could bounce back because last year I wanted to see Ohio State versus Bama. I think Ohio State had the best chance to beat Bama, and I still think that. Just because that defense, I think their defense is better than Clemson's, and they have a better chance of stopping that offense. Even though Ohio State doesn't look as good as they did last year defensively, but it was more. I think it's more on their schedule, and the fact that they started late. So
and they were struggling offensively as of late, but that was more so due to the injury that Justin Fields currently has.
Yeah, and it's also they had a late start too, so they couldn't catch groove as much as everyone else. But that running back though that you guys had, he looks nasty. Then the fourth team that was such a big deal, Notre Dame. They beat out some teams. I guess you can say Florida, Texas A&M, a few others. So my question to you: did the committee get the right teams in? And if you do agree or disagree, do you agree with the seedings, especially with you being an Ohio State fan? Do you mind being the third seed?
So I feel like so immediately when I saw these rankings, I didn't think they were right. And it was because that 4th seed, I thought Notre Dame getting in after having gotten beaten by Clemson so badly, that would, with Trevor Lawrence coming back and having lost to them, not with Trevor Lawrence, that, the college football committee would say, well, that's all the proof we need. Let's slide another 4th team in there. However, like giving it more thought and seeing, the possibility of that other 4th team being there, I think the college football committee really threw out, I feel like they threw everything out the window this season and said, or not everything out the window, but I think they said rather than just schedule and strength of schedule and opponents they've beaten. Let's include everything. That includes, what they see on the field every Friday and Saturday. That includes the eye test. It's not just about schedule. I think the fact that they beat Clemson and then lost to them without their quarterback the first time and with their quarterback the second time, I think they kind of threw that out the window and was like, look, it's 1-1. If we possibly get a third matchup, we don't know what happens. Let's give them an opportunity to prove that. You know what I mean? So I think it was just more so a weird year, for the committee, and they decided we got to pick the 4 best teams that we see, because and that's another reason why I don't have a problem with the third ranked Ohio State. I do think we're a better team than ranked 3. Obviously, me being an Ohio State fan, it might seem a little biased. I do think we're a better team than ranked 3, but having only played, I believe, 6 games at this point, it's only fair to say a team that has a longer schedule with either 0 or no losses and has played, just as good, if not better teams, should be higher. So it's only fair that we're ranked 3. I think if we had a full schedule, and I think we would have gone undefeated, I think we would have been a higher seed. But just like I said, it's a weird year with everything that has gone on. I think they got it completely right. I think they said, look, we got all the schedules, we got all the records. Who are the best 4 teams? And I think the best 4 teams did make the playoffs.
So for me, I agree. I think for the committee, this is probably the hardest year in determining a college football playoffs. I think this probably would have been the best year to test out an extended playoffs. Just because I don't think 4 teams is enough. I would like to see 8 teams, and just kind of beef it up from there, similar to how they have the basketball playoffs. On one conference, just do that, but obviously just one game and just make it all the way through. But I think that would have been the best chance, just because you wouldn't really be leaving anyone out. But as for the seedings, I don't think you guys would have had the first seed. I'm not saying with the I'm talking about just currently with how many games you guys played. If anything, you guys would have been the second seed. So you guys still would have played Clemson regardless.
Yeah.
So I don't think that really matters. I think Bama was the unanimous number 1. How everything panned out. The 4th seed, I agree. We talked about this before. The only way we see Notre Dame making it is if they beat Clemson the first time around. And I said then that I think they would win without Trevor Lawrence, and they would lose when Trevor Lawrence returned. But I didn't think they were going to get blown out the way that
which
they did.
happened. And I mean, I feel like the blowout was really what had everybody saying, okay, they definitely can't make it. But it's a weird year.
But that's my thing is, so Florida, the way they played Bama in the SEC championship, I think if they did not lose to Texas A&M early on in the season, they would have had that 4th seed, because they have 2 losses now. They lost to Bama and Texas A&M.
Well, actually, they have 3 now.
Okay, which makes it even worse. So I think if they didn't lose to one of the first losses, I think they would have made it, and they would have played Bama again. I think that was a really good game. I think they had a chance to actually beat Bama, and they played a tougher schedule because they were in the SEC. But my thing is, the only 2 teams that I've seen that was, they deserved the 4th seed was Texas A&M and Notre Dame. So now you compare, the resumes. They both have 1 loss. Texas A&M lost to Bama, and Notre Dame lost to Clemson, who they already beat. Yes, people say they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, yada yada. With or without Trevor Lawrence, they're still one of the best teams in the country.
100%.
So even though Trevor Lawrence does make them that much better, but think about it. So Texas A&M, they lost to Bama by 28. Notre Dame lost to Clemson by 24. So already they lost by less, so that's more in their favor. And they have that victory over Clemson, that big spark of a victory. So whereas Texas A&M, their best victory is against Florida. Clearly, Clemson's a better team than Florida.
Yeah.
So I think that's what played in their favor. And also what I'm saying is, whoever gets this 4th seed is playing Bama. So if Texas A&M lost to Bama by 28, no one wants to see them wash Texas A&M again in the college football playoffs. Give them a different opponent and see how that works out. Notre Dame might have a better chance of beating Bama. Not saying it's going to happen. We'll get more into that next. But if the team lost to the team that they're going to face in playoffs by 28, no one wants to see that. They want to see a competitive game. And if Notre Dame gets blown out, you couldn't have gone wrong with that decision, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And not to mention, looking at the Texas A&M schedule, they really didn't beat anybody other than Florida, who is now a 3-loss team, and having gotten blown out by multiple teams. So at this point, Miami. Florida's already not looking like they were as good a team as when Texas A&M beat them. So if your one, powerhouse opponent is that Florida team, it starts to look less and less like a good win every week. And I feel like that also is what really hurts them.
Yeah, and my thing is, you can't knock Notre Dame for Trevor Lawrence not being available. That's not their fault. And a lot of people are knocking Notre Dame because of their strength of schedule. Yeah. So why are you knocking Clemson for their strength of schedule? They're playing conference games. They play in the ACC. Like, the only good team that they can possibly face is each other, and they split the series. So you have to put them in. There's that's my thing is people like to talk and don't really like to look at the numbers. Like, it was one of the hardest years to determine, or the hardest year to determine it, and that's why I think it should have been an expanded playoffs. But they're the one team that really deserved it, amongst the teams that were still left. And I think the college football players is going to be very interesting. I do think Bama is going to blow Notre Dame out of the water. I don't know if it'll be by more than 28, but I think it'll look a lot like their Clemson loss. But
I think they'll beat them by at least 14.
I hope it's a good game, and I really do, because I'm a Georgia fan, so I don't like Bama. But that's neither here or there. But but it was more just because, as a fan, I'm tired of seeing these blowout games.
Yeah.
Like, there's always one team that gets into the playoffs that doesn't deserve it, and it might be Notre Dame. And there's always that one game that's a blowout. I don't want to see a blowout. I want to see a really good game, and because there's only 3 games. There's the 2 semifinal games and the final game.
I agree.
But the one game I'm looking forward to is that Clemson Ohio State game, and the reason why is Justin Fields is my guy, and I've tried telling you, I think he's a better player than Trevor Lawrence.
Well, we'll get to see that, and we'll get to see that now. I think that is the highlighted matchup, especially thinking back to how you always mentioned to me how they faced off in that QB. I forget the name of the show, but that QB
Elite
show,
12.
Elite 12, and Justin Fields actually beat Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, it came down to them two, and Justin Fields won. And coming out of high school, who was the number 1 ranked quarterback? It was Justin Fields. Why? Because he proved himself. And I think last year he proved himself, but people thought it was more of a fluke because he was only 1 season. And, Lawrence coming in midway through the season, his first season, won the national championship, and they kind of riding high on him. I'm not saying that, even though I think Fields is number 1, Lawrence won't go 1 in the draft. I think Lawrence is the prototypical quarterback that executives look for, and he's going to go 1 regardless. But me personally, I think Fields is the better quarterback, and he's going to prove it. I mean, it was kind of hard for him to prove it when they faced off last year because he was banged up, and I get he's dealing with injuries now. So he's turning over the ball a bit more, especially with that one game where I think it was against Nebraska where he had multiple turnovers, some of which wasn't his fault, but I think his decision making is a lot better than Trevor Lawrence, even though Trevor Lawrence might be more naturally gifted, you can say. I think Fields, his duality in terms of being able to kill you with his arm or his legs is going to help Ohio State, especially with that pass rush from Clemson. He's going to be able to move the pocket and extend plays and open things up for his receivers.
I agree. I mean, I got Ohio State making it all the way against Bama.
And you're not going to pick against them.
Beating Bama, I can't pick against my team. But obviously, we all know how good Bama is. But ultimately, I do think the committee got it 100% right with everything they were given this year. And even if the playoffs were extended to 6 or even 8 teams, like we say we want, there's always going to be people that have a problem with those top teams that make it, because they're always going to think that one other team had
someone
a better,
got snubbed.
Yeah. So it's always
But the
going to
thing
be
is,
that way. But
it's harder when you say like the fifth team or the fifth or sixth teams were snubs because they're left out because
yeah,
of. But
it gets harder to say that as you
in comparison to like the ninth and 10th team, like those teams are a lot better and have a better resume to kind of convince themselves to be in the playoffs. But before we move on to talk about the Heisman, my prediction is Ohio State, Bama, and unfortunately, Jovan, I'm going with Bama. I think Bama is just.
they're a really good
I think Bama is just too overpowered, but I think it'll be a close one because I do think that you guys match up with them better. I think if you guys faced off last season, you guys would have won. But the fact that you guys took that notch down defensively, I think it'll be harder with that high power offense of theirs. But like I said, I'll be rooting for you guys just because Justin Fields and I don't like Bama. So I just think Bama's just so overpowered with Mac Jones and DeVonta Smith being Heisman candidates, and then the running back Najee Harris, he's a beast. He's a problem. And then they even got Waddle, who's a speedster. So it's kind of be hard to cover all bases for Ohio State. But I think you guys are capable of upsetting them if need be. So we're gonna move on to our Heisman's candidates. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me, but I think the four is Mac Jones, DeVonta Smith, Trevor Lawrence, and who's the fourth one?
I only saw three. I believe it's the top three. So the top three is Mac Jones, DeVonta Smith, and Trevor Lawrence. So you are correct about that.
Okay. Because I think I've seen Trask, or I seen the dude from Penn State.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I believe
I don't know which one.
I believe
which one it was.
they have a list in which they talk about them, but the finalist is three.
Okay, so that's good.
Besides that,
all right, I'm gonna go out here on a limb, and I don't know if it's much of a limb, but I think that DeVonta Smith deserves the Heisman, and we know it's a quarterback award. Essentially, it's kind of hard for someone outside of a quarterback or running back to win it. I know there's only two receivers in history to win the Heisman Award, and I think DeVonta Smith is deserving of that. The dude has 98 catches for a little more than 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns. He's averaging 15.4 yards per catch. He has a rushing touchdown, a punt return touchdown, and that performance against LSU was just phenomenal. I think he's deserving of it. My fear is that they're going to give it to Mac Jones because they're going to say, oh, DeVonta Smith couldn't have done that without this guy. And he's a quarterback, so they're going to favor the quarterback. Do I think Mac Jones is deserving of it? He's deserving of being nominated. I don't think he's deserving of winning it. I'd rather them give it to Trevor Lawrence in that case. But I think DeVonta Smith has shown he's the best receiver in college football this season. And the reason why I say that is Jamar Chase opted out beforehand, so we didn't really get to see it. But this season, he's proved himself. And as a Giants fan, if we get a top 10 pick or close to it, if he's there on the board, I would like to take him. But I think he's deserving of it. And I hope he wins it. I mean, he'd be the first receiver to win the Heisman since I think Desmond Howard in 1991. So that's a big accomplishment in itself. And to be the third receiver to do it would be phenomenal. I think Tim Brown was the first one. So kudos to him. I hope he does pull it off.
Yeah, no, you took the words right out of my mouth 100%. I would like to see DeVonta Smith win it. You read off all his statistics. He's leading in literally every receiving category in first, other than touchdowns, which he's second. And he's having, a historic year. So it'd be great to see him, in the history books again, making history as only the third wide receiver to win it. I'd love to see it, especially because it doesn't happen often. And you like to see guys that, positions that don't often win these awards win this award because, it's just not something you get to see. So when a guy has a season like this, of course he's deserving. However, my fear is the same, is that I think Mac Jones will win it because he is the quarterback throwing to DeVonta Smith. He has 4 400-yard games. He's on pace for the highest completion percentage in Alabama school history, and he's second most passing yards in the nation with 3,739. So I think Mac Jones will win it. Unfortunately, I do think he is deserving of being nominated and winning. I think all of them are. Well, I think those two are equally as deserving. I'd like to see either of those two win it, but I do want to see DeVonta Smith win it.
I think the one thing that may sway him to win it is his special teams impact.
100%.
Because in that case, the only one that can really control that is him. He's not dependent on Mac Jones to get him the ball.
Yeah.
But I think his yards after catch play a big favor too, because Mac Jones gets him the ball, but he's beating these dudes on these routes, or even when he just gets the ball in his hand, he's beating these dudes with the ball. Yep. So his yards after catch and his special teams impact, I think, will sway the voters in his favor. Should he win?
Well, hopefully. I don't know. I forget what his yards after catch was, but it was some ridiculous number. How many yards after catch he has. So, I mean, like I said, I hope he win it. If there was any chance for him to win it or any year for him to win it, it's this year. I mean, I think the field is as open as it's ever been for Heisman, especially in most recent years where it seemed like obviously there's always candidates, but there was always that one standout candidate that was kind of running away with the race. We've seen that a lot as of late. And this year, with everything going on, it seems like this is as open as the field is ever going to get for a wide receiver to win it, especially a guy like Smith who had such an amazing season.
And I'm happy for the guy too, because last year he was the third receiver in Alabama with Judy and Ruggs being there. Yeah. So he was very overshadowed, and people were still predicting him to be a first-round pick last year, but he opted to return, and I think his stock just went up.
I mean, that for that reason, I imagine. Coming out of college now, being a Heisman winner, or potentially at least, you definitely, bring your stock up to a top 10 pick, like you said. If the Giants,
now he's definitely a top 3 receiver in this upcoming draft class. Now the question is, will he be number 1? Because a lot of people didn't expect Ruggs to go 1, and over Judy and Lamb, and look, he went 1. So maybe he goes to 1 over Chase, and we don't know. But with that being said, we're going to take a quick little break here, and we'll come back with talking about the NFL. The Pro Bowl announcement or Pro Bowl rosters were announced, so we're going to be talking about that, along with who we think will run away with these league awards. We made our predictions early on, or before the season started, on who we thought will win. But right now, who's leading or who's the favorite to win those awards, in our opinion. So we'll be right back. Stay with us.
The boy patience is getting thinner than big raises. Since 9-6, been accustomed to hooligan behavior. Can call your Lord and Savior, he ain't even trying to save you. And call his phone in some years, asking for big favors. The reason why a lot of niggas die, whether it be hunger or you trying to test me in the guise. Never been a fan of school, you can miss me with the problems, but I still graduated, so I obviously solve them. 2-piece and a biscuit, I risk it if I got her. Principles what life's about, I knock you out about $1. Might as well refer to me as MVP of all the rhymers. Talking body after body, John Gracie, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm a fucking amazing, a monster to say the least, too profitable. So I feel responsible to achieve everything that I once believed times 3, cause I overdo it. My music is more than music, it's how I'm surviving through it, nigga. Dime. Never been a fool, bitch, lately been on my time. Miss me with the bullshit, it's a cold world. Be careful who you cool with, claiming them your slimes till they slime you, typical shit.
We're back with more Balls Deep. We're going to talk about some NFL, in particular the Pro Bowl. So the Pro Bowl rosters were announced, and there's a lot of speculation on how these shits were determined, but I guess it's 10% or 33% the fans, 33% executives, and 33% the NFL players vote. But the only thing with them is they can't vote for their teammates. So anyone on their teams, they can't vote for themselves or their teammates. So they have to vote for, their colleagues around the league. And that's how the things are, determined. So I guess we'll talk about surprises with that. And And I guess I don't know if you'll agree, but my one surprise. No, my one surprise, the one surprise that someone made it was Evan Ingram.
Oh, why would I disagree with that?
No, I said I don't think you'll disagree.
I was gonna say, now that you explain how they determine who makes it, I'm even more surprised that he made it. I have no idea. No knock on Evan Ingram. I love the guy, but as a Giants fan, even I don't understand how he made the Pro Bowl. I guess, lack of producing tight ends in the NFC. I guess I'll chalk it up to that, but I have no idea. I really just have no idea how he made it, especially considering some of the snubs I have are,
So my snub that I had was Robert Tonyan.
Okay. Well, I had.
And wait, before you go into your list.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason why I say Tonyan, I think Tonyan deserved it more than Ingram. So only Tonyan and Kelsey have caught 10 touchdown passes this season amongst tight ends. And Tonyan has done it on just 54 targets, whereas Kelsey has done it on 127. So I think he rejuvenated that Packers offense a bit because they've been looking for a tight end to incorporate in the offense. And I think he's done just that. And it's basically been a 1-2 punch with Adams and him. So I think he was the most deserving tight end in the NFC. And Hawkinson made it too, but I'm not so mad about that. I think as a Giants fan, Ingram is just so frustrating to watch, especially with his drops. I think he leads the league in drops or drop passes since entering the league. And mind you, he's dealt with so many injuries. It's ridiculous. A lot of Daniel Jones or a lot of interceptions or turnovers this season, or Daniel Jones interceptions this season, have fucking Evan Ingram's name, date of birth, social security number, all on it. Because this man they throw it at him, it hits his hand, and tip drill interception. Yeah. And it fucking pisses me off. Like, everyone gets mad at Daniel Jones because of his turnovers, but half of these aren't even his fault because the fumbles are a different story. But these interceptions, they're bouncing off this guy's hands, and it's literally only him. I swear to God, whenever there's an interception, when they roll the instant replay back, Ingram's in the frame all the time, and it's always somehow his way. It's his fault. I'm telling you, he as much as I think he has so much potential, because I've said this before. I think Darren Waller's what the Giants thought Evan Ingram could be or can be, and he's just not doing it because Darren Waller is a fucking beast, and I think Ingram has the potential of being just as good. It's just this man's hands is so sketchy.
Yeah. Well, my snubs are the wide receiver Calvin Ridley of the Falcons and running back James Robinson of the Jaguars. I don't know that there is an award for breakout player of the year, but if we were going to give it to anybody, in my opinion, it'd be one of those two guys. Both had great seasons for their teams. So in my opinion, I was kind of shocked to see that both of them didn't make it, especially after seeing a few of the guys, more specifically Evan Ingram, making it.
So my thing is, I had Calvin Ridley as a snub as well. The only reason why I did not mention it is because if you put him in,
you gotta take somebody out. Yeah, I agree. That's always the toughest part.
Yeah, and think about it. The 4 receivers who made it for the NFC was Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Jefferson, and DK Metcalf. Now, who do you take out?
No, 100%. You wouldn't take anybody out.
The reason why I say that is because if I had to pick one of those to take out for Ridley, it would have been DK. But the thing is, DK is in his top 5 in receiving yards.
And I wouldn't take DK. That's the thing. I wouldn't take any of those guys out. But when you see a certain guy perform a certain way, I mean, he definitely. There's only so many spots. There's only so many spots that you can have on a roster. I mean, it's only.
He might get lucky, and someone might go to the Super Bowl.
Very true. But that's the thing. So there's only so few spots that you're always going to have a guy that should be there that doesn't make it. So when I say that there's a guy that's a snub, I mean more specifically a guy that's deserving of being there more so than more deserving than somebody that's already there. You know what I mean? So I do believe those two are snubs. Not to say that anybody that made it over them, other than Evan Ingram, who plays a different position, shouldn't have made it. But I definitely think those guys. I could have seen them being, Pro Bowl players, and I don't think that with injuries, with a lot of guys not going because of the Super Bowl. I do think that both of those guys might end up making rosters.
But you also got to think about it too. The Pro Bowl is not going to get played out this season. They said there's not going to be a game. I think they're going to do like virtually where they play in Madden or something like that due to COVID. But it's still interesting. I think the reserves should still be a thing. But I think James Robinson is more likely of taking a spot, because in the AFC it was Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Josh Jacobs. Nick Chubb, he missed some time, but his impact this season has just goes to show that him being deserving of a Pro Bowl and he missed time it says a lot. And then Josh Jacobs has missed some time too. Had a solid year as well, but James Robinson could have replaced either or due to like the missed time due to injury and things like that, because he definitely did break out. He was an undrafted rookie. No one really expected him to do well, and he's killing it, even though the Jaguars stink.
He's the one bright spot on that team.
For sure. And if they get Trevor Lawrence, they pair him with Trevor Lawrence and James Robinson, and you still got DJ Chark.
Now that the Jets got their first W.
No, but I'm so mad that the Jets actually beat the Rams, because now if Fields does go he's going to the Jets. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. But my number one snub. So I have two snubs. My number one is Deforest Buckner. He's been an absolute beast this season, and especially for his first season with the Indianapolis Colts. I think going up against the Colts and their defense, which is top notch, the one person you're worried about is Deforest Buckner. And there's Darius Leonard for sure. He's a monster in himself, but DeForest Buckner is literally busting through offensive lines like no tomorrow, whether it's in the run game or pass rush. He's definitely deserving of it. One person I would have probably taken out that made it. So the thing is, they're doing interior defensive linemen and defensive ends separately. So he's considered interior defensive lineman. So, but Calais Campbell made it to Pro Bowl. So, and he's played both. So, if anything, you flex him over to the defensive end position and take Frank Clark out. Frank Clark, I don't think is deserving of a Pro Bowl this season, at least, especially over DeForest Buckner. So, I would have put DeForest Buckner in it and found a way to make him fit. The main reason why is only Hayward. Not Hayward. Only Hayward and Aaron Donald. So Casey Hayward, no, not Casey Hayward. Hayward, I think from the Steelers. So only Hayward and Aaron Donald have more total pressures among interior defensive linemen than Buckner. Buckner's 47. So he has 47 total pressures, and he's got 28 stops this season. So that alone, I think, just goes to show that he's deserving of a Pro Bowl spot. And even though Pro Bowl is more of a popularity contest, I think he'll make All Pro. It makes any sense. This is not on my list, but Blake Martinez I think should have made it too. He's I think leading tackling amongst linebackers or something like that. He's up there, but I think he'll be more in the running for All Pro than Pro Bowl because he's not really a big name. And I'm surprised they even voted Bradbury in, even though he's had a great season. I'm just surprised that people actually voted him in outside of Giants fans. But my other person is J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. So Jackson has allowed 34 years. Huh?
Or are you surprised?
I think he's a snub. So he's the number 2 corner on the team, behind Gilmore. Gilmore and Trey White, who are both great corners, made the Pro Bowl, but they haven't had a phenomenal year. So I think he's more deserving of being in the Pro Bowl than they are, especially with Gilmore missing time. He's had to play these number 1 receivers half the time. So just look, Jackson has allowed 34 receptions and 63 targets for 433 yards, 163 yards after catch, 3 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and an opponent passer rating of 52. He's definitely a snub. Now, who do I take out? I just said, so the corners from the AFC is Xavier Howard, Marlon Humphrey, Stephon Gilmore, and Trey White. I would take out either Trey White or Stephon Gilmore. And if I had to pick, I would probably take out Gilmore. And I think it's now that he's hurt, he definitely will be taken out. But J.C. Jackson, I think him and Howard going back and forth for leading the league in interceptions. So he's deserving of it. He's a very underrated name. I think that's why he didn't make it. Because I think they had a petition for him to even be on the ballot. Because when they officially released the ballot, his name wasn't even on it.
Oh wow,
which is crazy. But
well, like you said, it is a popularity contest, and that's why it's kind of it's better to hold the All Pro to a little bit of a higher standard than it is,
Yeah. So those are my snubs. I didn't really get into detail with the Giants players, or the Giant player, I should say, Blake Martinez, because I didn't want to really seem like a homer. But I do think he's definitely was deserving of a Pro Bowl. But I'm just glad that Bradbury got voted in. I'm going to be a little homer right here. Graham Gano.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely one of the best kickers in the league this season.
Yeah, that was a surprise, yeah.
So the fact that he didn't make it at all was a big surprise. So, but we're going to shift over.
I don't know that he's missed a kick all season.
No, I think he missed one, last week, but that was his first one in all season, which is still a crazy statistic.
Really good, yeah.
And I think Younghoe Koo was the one who made it over him anyway. So
I believe Rodrigo Blankenship didn't even make it for the Colts, and he was one of the highest scorers in the NFL.
Yeah, my guy from Georgia, Bulldog, respect the specs. Hold on, I'll tell you right now. Younghoe Koo is the one who made it for the NFC. So he's had a great, phenomenal season in himself. So it's kind of hard to take it away when you only vote one kicker in. But so I'm not too mad about it. But Gano is he definitely deserved it. But shifting over to the awards this season, we'll kind of go similar to what we did with the NBA. So there's 6 in total. So we'll go 2 and 2. I guess you can do that. And we'll do comeback player of the year with MVP. Make that easier. Okay. So we'll do offensive, defensive rookie, offensive and defensive players, and then we'll do comeback and MVP.
Okay.
All right.
So you want to do offensive or defensive rookie and player?
Okay, we could do that too.
No, I'm saying, which one do you want to do first?
Oh, rookie.
No. Rookie, offensive, and defensive together? I thought you wanted to do the offense together and defense together.
Nah, just keep it rookie so they don't get confused.
Okay,
but
so
you can start it off.
All right. With that being said, I feel like the offensive rookie and defensive rookie of the year awards this year are pretty easy. In my opinion, there are 2 rookies that I've seen that kind of separated themselves from the bunch, and that's Justin Jefferson and Chase Young. I mean, Chase Young really has been the heart of that defense over in Washington, has, kept that team in games and put them in positions to beat teams that they shouldn't this season. He's one of the biggest reasons they're even, obviously the NFC East, being the NFC East is the biggest reason that they're still in playoff contention. But he's the biggest reason that they are currently in first place. You know what I mean?
He revitalized that defense.
100%. I mean, he did exactly what everybody thought he would do. He brought a lot of energy to that defense. He did exactly what people saw from him at Ohio State. He just disrupts the line. If he's not getting a sack, fumble, and returning it for a touchdown, then he's creating enough pressure for one of his guys on the other side to do exactly what he couldn't. He's just a force.
I think he's a big reason why Montez Sweat made that jump from last season to this season.
100%. I mean, when you have a guy like that going opposite you, I mean, it's only going to help. With that being said, Justin Jefferson is the other person. He's one of the best receivers in the league currently, not just one of the best rookie receivers in the league. He's one of the best receivers in the league currently, period. I believe he broke Randy Moss's record for rookie record for receptions.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he broke Randy Moss's
record.
rookie record for, I believe, it might have been receptions or yards. So I think for me, those races are runaway, and it's those two guys by far.
So for me, I have those exact same people winning the awards. Justin Jefferson, they had a question of who's the offensive rookie of the year. They put up a poll, and it was Justin Jefferson or Justin Herbert. And Stephon Diggs commented Jefferson, no question. And I think he's right. I think Herbert was the favorite to win it for some time because he is a quarterback, and the impact the Chargers suck, but that's not his fault. He's had them in the game every single time. It's not his fault that they can't close out. But the one game that I think hurts him in this race was the game against the Patriots where he got shut out and they didn't score at all. I think once that happened, Jefferson took the award and he's still running to the podium as we speak. And he's deserving of it. And it looks even worse on Eagles fans, which is great because they're so depressed because he fell in their lap on draft day and they chose to go with Jalen Reagor, who's a speedster but unproven at that. Whereas you could have picked Justin Jefferson, who analysts said was just a slot guy, which he's proven this year that he's not. He's more than just a slot guy. And the thing is, he was in the SEC. Yes, he was the number 2 receiver to Jamar Chase, but he's putting up number 1 receiver numbers at LSU. And people could say, "Oh, LSU is just such a high-powered offense," but yeah, he still got his though. And think about it. You're coming into the league trying to fill Stephon Diggs' shoes, who departed from Minnesota, and you're making your own identity. You're bringing a spark to that team with his touchdown dances and everything because you got Adam Thielen doing the same dance, which is hilarious. So I would love to see him win it. I think he deserves to win it because not many non-QBs actually win the award. And it's pretty obvious. The only 2 rookies to make the Pro Bowl was
those two,
Justin Jefferson and Chase Young. So, and Chase Young has revitalized that defense, and that's why the defense is a top 10 defense in the league currently because of their pass rush, the front 4, and he's their best pass rusher. So that says a lot, especially with him coming in as a rookie. But the only person that I'd probably say, not the only person, but someone who I think has made it just as big of an impact as a rookie that could possibly take it is Justin Blackman from the Colts. He's very underrated. No one really talks about him as much, but that defense is top 10 in the league as well, and he's a playmaker in the back, and he's helping out that secondary big time. So I think he's one to watch out for. You could say Winfield Jr. from the Bucks, but the Bucks secondary still is trash, so I wouldn't really go that far. But I think Blackman is probably the biggest threat of Chase Young not winning it, but I think it's pretty obvious who's winning that award.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we're shipped over to offense and defensive player of the year. I guess since you went first, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
All right. So my defensive player of the year was easy. Aaron Donald. He's done what he's done the past few years, if not more. He's kind of hard to guard, and I think he's the greatest interior defensive lineman of all time. I'm just gonna go out here and say if no one believes it already, I think by the end of his career it'll be pretty evident that he was.
I agree.
He's phenomenal, and the reason why the Rams are as good as they are defensively is because of him and Jalen Ramsey, but more because of him, because he's making Jalen Ramsey's job easier by putting pressure on the quarterback or just stopping the run. Can't really stop him, and you double team the guy, and he still finds a way to make an impact because you double team him. Now someone else their job's easier because they can get to the quarterback or not. He's making his teammates' jobs easier. So that I think that was easy for me. For offensive player of the year, I was teetering back and forth between Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry, but I'm going to roll with Derrick Henry, especially with his collective games from this month. He's only gotten better as the season progresses, and I think that's happened last year as well. But he's on this run where he's rushing for, I think, over 150 yards or 130 yards for consecutive games. He's a stud, and he's leading the league in rushing currently as we record this. And I think he'll lead the league in rushing when it's all said and done. and that'll be the second year in a row to be the leading rusher in the league. So, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. Denzel's going to be happy, tighten up. So, Derrick Henry, I think, is going to be my offensive player of the year. And the reason why I say that is because they won't give him MVP because MVP is the quarterback award. So we'll continue with that conversation soon when we talk about our picks. But I'll let you go.
All right, so my defensive player of the year is actually T.J. Watt.
Hey, my guy!
That's actually that's actually who Devin chose in the beginning of the season. So shout out to Devin. Obviously, the slide that the Steelers have been taking kind of takes away from the season he's been having a little bit. But this season, it's really looked like that steel curtain that the Steelers are known for having in their past history is back, and a big part of that reason is because of T.J. Watt anchoring that defense down at the linebacker position, really doing everything they need him to do, leading the NFL in sacks. Obviously, we know how good Aaron Donald is, so I can't say that it'd be wrong if he won it. But T.J. Watt is, if there's any season that he's going to win it, it's this year. He's had his best year of his entire career. It's really hard to beat a guy like Aaron Donald out for it, but I do think he is capable of doing it this season, especially if that Steelers team can turn it around late in the season after, this 3-game slide they've been having.
So I had T.J. Watt literally in second place behind Aaron Donald. I just went with Aaron Donald. But I'm glad you mentioned him because, your boy picked him early on in the season as my pick. But also, I think the slide isn't really his fault. I think they've dealt with so many injuries on the defensive side of the football. They're missing Joe Hayden because he's been banged up. Bud Dupree went out for the season. Devin, what's his last name?
Bush?
Yeah, Devin Bush went out for the season. And I think a lot of these injuries is the reason why they're plummeting. And offensively, they're not putting up the numbers that they were because the defense was keeping their opponents to such low numbers that it was making the offense's job easier. But now they need the offense to carry this team, and the offense isn't doing their job. So, I think he's still in the running. I think if anything, he's gotten better since Bud Dupree went out with injury because now he has more on his plate. And I think teams go into the games expecting to guard him or double team him, and he still finds a way to make an impact. So I'm glad you mentioned him.
Yeah. And with that being said, my offensive player of the year, it has to be, for me, Travis Kelce.
Okay.
I feel like he might not get the nod he deserves in this conversation, although I feel like he's more than deserving. I believe he has 98 receptions currently, which is 2 away from 100, obviously, which would mean he's the first tight end in the history of the NFL to have 2 back-to-back 100-reception seasons ever. So that's a record that he's on pace to break currently this week against the Falcons. He's also 60 yards away from breaking the receiving records for a tight end in terms of yards, away from George Kittle's in 2018, 1,377. He currently has 1,318. He's really just been a special player. He's not just, you can argue all day who's a better tight end, is Kittle or Kelce. Doesn't matter. But right now, Kelce is by far the best tight end in the NFL right now, and he might be one of the best receivers, not even just the tight end, receivers in the NFL right now.
He's second in the league in receiving yards.
Second in the league in receiving yards. Could possibly be the first tight end to ever lead the league in receiving yards, as a tight end. 94.1 yards per game. It's just insane. The season he's having for a tight end, for a player in general, for a receiver, it's really good. And I think he definitely deserves that nod as Offensive Player of the Year.
So that pick threw me for a loop because I didn't expect you to go that way. But I love the pick. I love me some Travis Kelce. He's one of the flyest dudes in the NFL.
He's been killing it all season. I feel like if there's any time for
he's one of the flyest dudes off the field in the NFL, and he's one of the flyest dudes on the field with the NFL. So they have no correlation whatsoever. But he reminds me of Dirk Nowitzki. He's that white boy that everyone loves. So
I think, like I said, in my opinion, I mean, I know these running backs, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, have been great. But really, Kelsey's just, I mean, if you're going to give it to Offensive Player of the Year, Kelsey's the best player at his position. He's by far. It's not even close. If there's any position in the NFL, there's no question about it. It's his right now.
Like, I get the argument. Like Kittle, I think Kittle's a more better overall tight end just because I think he's a better blocker. But Kelsey's been the best tight end in football for going on 5 years, I think. Yeah. It's 4 or 5 years. So he's continuing his dominance. I think you can't take that number one spot from him until Kittle, continues to do what he does.
Healthy and does what he
and think about it too. Kelsey stays healthy.
Yeah, 100%.
He's not banged up, and he's phenomenal. But
it's kind of like what you say about what you've said already about other people or other things is you can't blame Kelsey for Kittle not being there. I mean, you know what I mean?
And you can't blame him that he has Patrick Mahomes as quarterback or he got Tyreek Hill next to him. Like, whether he was there or not, he was still dominating. Like, when Alex Smith was there, Kelsey was still producing 1,000-yard seasons. Yeah. And Alex Smith isn't as good as Patrick Mahomes, but he still did what he had to do. And Tyreek Hill is only going to get better, but he's more of a stretch and field guy. So going in, you still have to worry about Kelsey, and Kelsey still finds a way to dominate. And on the pick'em, week 15 pick'em, when Isaiah was on the show, I said I went with the Saints to beat the Chiefs, and you both went with the Chiefs. Yeah. And I said I think Tyreek Hill is not going to have a big game because Lattimore is going to be on him. But the one person I'm worried about is Patrick Mahomes creating plays with his legs and Travis Kelce. I don't think they have an answer for Travis Kelce. And sure enough, those two things are the reason why they fucking lost. Because it's just crazy. But I do think that if Kelce leads the league in receiving, he'll have a really big argument for that award. And I would love to see him win it. Even though I picked Derrick Henry, I would love to see him win it, especially if he leads the league in receiving. And it's more than possible of happening.
100%. I agree.
So our last two awards, I don't know if you want to do comeback player of the year and then allow me to go, and then we could do MVP that way, or just do back to back.
It don't matter. I mean, I could list them both. I could get them both.
All right, just you put your two out. Do comeback player of the year first.
All right. So my comeback player of the year is really between two guys. I'll give one the honorable mention though, and that's Big Ben. Obviously, being out last season, the Steelers, what they had to work with, and then him coming back now, having started, I believe, 10-0, 11-0. Obviously, they've been on a 3-game slide, but undeniable that they're one of the best teams in the NFL, especially comparing to what they did last season without him, is huge. Obviously, their defense is really, really good, but even with it being good, they really did nothing without him last year, and he showed how important he was to the team, and he's having a good season for somebody that didn't play last year. Now, with that being said, I think the comeback player of the year is Alex Smith, simply because although he might not have the numbers, he might not have the statistics of a comeback player of the year. He might not have, the accolades and this, that, and the third, or he might not even start. For him to have come back from such a gruesome injury last year, near-death experience, he didn't. Last year. Or sorry, 3 years ago.
Like, I think 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Sorry, last year. So having come back from almost dying, they said after he caught an infection in his leg after breaking it, he never had to step on an NFL field ever again if he wanted to. You know what I mean? He would have been fine. He would have been set for life, and he made it a point to come back, not only come back, stay on the roster, but then start and win a game after having gone through what he did in those last few years. I think that in itself is enough for me to award that comeback player of the year for him, just because Like I said, he might not have the accolades, he might not have the stats, he might not have one of the best teams, but having never needing to come back and play a football game ever again and nearly dying and then coming back and winning a football game is huge. And it speaks to how talented Alex Smith is and how talented, I think, in my opinion, he's always been.
Underrated.
Yeah, very underrated quarterback. Very, very good quarterback. Always has been a starting caliber quarterback in the league. So I just thought that was huge. So like I said, just that alone for me is comeback player of the year worthy. But with that being said, my MVP is pretty cut and dry. It's Rodgers. I think it's really, really, really close race between him and Mahomes right now. Obviously, they're the two best quarterbacks in the league currently right now. I think there's a pretty good gap between them two and Josh Allen. But I'll give the nod to Rodgers just because the offensive system and who he's working with. Not to say he doesn't have Devontae Adams on his team. Devontae Adams is good, but Devontae Adams was also dealing with injuries this season. He didn't have Lazard for the large part of the season. But just to speak on what happened after the draft, what was everybody's problem with the Packers after the draft was they didn't get enough help for Rodgers. They didn't go after a weapon like everybody expected them to. They didn't get anybody that would help, Rodgers offensively make an immediate impact. And what did he do coming into the season? He has an MVP season with what everybody was saying wasn't enough. So he's got the Packers in a good spot right now, a playoff team, hopefully trying to make a good playoff push. Rodgers playing MVP level football with an offense that, in my opinion, still obviously isn't great, but is enough for Rodgers, clearly, because he's just doing exactly what we know he's capable of doing. And so that's why I give him the nod just a little bit above Mahomes, is because he's not working with that same explosive offensive system that Mahomes has the, ability to work with, and the fortune, being as fortunate to work with that offense.
Yeah, you can't really argue with anything you said. So my only thing is, you mentioned Big Ben as honorable mention. I wouldn't include him at all. Just because, yes, they went 11-0 and they had explosive offense for some time, but the defense was carrying them. And now that the defense isn't there, they've disappeared. And plus, they've always, what I've said to Isaiah a lot on the pick'em too, is the Steelers tend to play to their opponent.
Yeah.
Like, whether the opponent's really good, they'll play really good. But their opponent's not that well, they're not scoring as much either. Like, the games are always close. Even though they won 11-0, the games are always close because they played to their opponent. And they're more talented than that, I think. So that's the reason why I want to mention it. But Alex Smith is my comeback player of the year. I think it's his award to lose. Like you said,
I think he already won it. I mean, honestly,
that's what I'm saying. It's his award to lose. Like he wasn't even supposed to play football ever again. Like you said, he could have died
100%
due to the infection, and he was able to step on the field, play, win a game, and now the Washington football team is number one in the division. He's putting them in position to compete. Yes, the division sucks, but they were in last place when he took over, and now look, he's got them in a groove to now they have a chance to not only make it to the playoffs but make some noise. I mean, the defense was what was carrying them, and the offense wasn't really doing anything. And then he steps in and he does what he's known. And I think he's always had bad luck because with the 49ers, he had a really great game, his last game as a starter there, and I think had to sit out due to sickness or injury or something, and Kaepernick played. And Kaepernick took over. Like, he added another element that Alex Smith couldn't, and he lost his job. Then they traded him to Kansas City. He's a solid, quarterback, got him in the playoffs. They drafted Patrick Mahomes, and that was the end of history in itself. So I think he's just had bad luck, but he's, like you said, he's a startable quarterback in this league. He always has, always will be. So I think it's his award to lose. Can't really take it away from him. As soon as he stepped foot on the field, again, he won the award. and a lot of players around the league have testified to that as well. For my MVP, my prediction in the beginning of the season was Russell Wilson, and he was running away with the award for some time, and then ever since let Russ cook, he's been getting cooked because he's been a turnover machine. So my pick, you mentioned him already. Patrick Mahomes is my MVP. It's neck and neck between him and Rodgers. It's a two-man race. Patrick Mahomes is leading the league in passing yards. Aaron Rodgers is leading the league in passing touchdowns. Their QBR, literally, Aaron Rodgers is currently 83.5. Patrick Mahomes is 83.4. So it's that close. But the thing is, when it comes to passing yards, Aaron Rodgers is in top 5. Patrick Mahomes is he's top 1. He's number 1, but 2 of his receivers are in the top 5 category for receiving yards. And you mentioned him. You mentioned him earlier as Offensive Player of the Year, I believe. Travis Kelce. Yeah. He's done. He had that big of an impact, not just because of himself, but he has someone like Patrick Mahomes slinging him the football. And then Tyreek Hill, who's number 5 currently in receiving yards, is also a weapon on Patrick Mahomes. So
you're only making a better case for Aaron Rodgers because you're naming all the weapons that.
No,
okay. So hold on. Let me hit you with a little argument that you hit me with before in the NBA conversation. If you take away the quarterback from the team as the most valuable, what team is competing?
Oh no, yeah, I agree. It's the Chiefs are a more talented offense.
That's the answer.
I'm not disagreeing with that. That's why I said neck and neck conversation. But I'm not disagreeing with you.
I just had to throw that out there. You know what I mean? Most valuable.
But you also got to think about it too. Is the Chiefs' running game has been MIA. They haven't really had a running game. Even though CH started off well, he's disappeared as of late. Le'Veon Bell, since he's joined, they've really just been, standing there on the field. So it's really been all Mahomes' back, and he's won them games at that because, like the Saints game, they are unstoppable. Why? Because he extends these plays with his legs and somehow magically gets the ball into like the smallest windows or finds someone open. I don't know. It feels like whenever he throws it to someone, whenever he throws it to someone,
got hurt last game too.
Yeah, they're whenever he throws it to someone, they're just magically wide open, like butt naked in the middle of the field. No one's around them. And that's because he's extending these plays and getting them open. And I think that's a testament to that. I'm not taking anything away from Rodgers, but he does have Aaron Jones in the running game. And we mentioned Robert Tonyan as a snub before. And Devontae Adams is still one of the best receivers in the league as well. So he does have weapons. He doesn't have as much weapons, but he does have weapons. So it's close. So we're gonna see who's gonna run away with it. It's definitely 1A, 1B right now. But I think with the way they perform week 16 and 17, if they do play week 17, will determine who wins the award. But it's neck and neck. I'm going with Mahomes. You're going with Rodgers. We shall see. But you can't really argue with either one winning. I think they played both phenomenal. But I'm just saying, Mahomes has 2 receivers, top 5. And he's number 1.
No doubt, 100%. If I see either one of them win, I'm not gonna be, I'm not upset about it. They're both deserving of the award. It's the same with the, the Offensive Player of the Year awards. I think, both those running backs are deserving. Although I would like to see Kelce win it. There's a lot of really good players this season doing a lot of spectacular things. So,
yeah. So that's all we have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of 2021. Hopefully, this is just the beginning of something greater for 2021. Hopefully 2021 treats everybody a lot better than 2020 did. Hopefully we don't lose some big legends like we did this year. R.I.P. Kobe, and R.I.P. everyone else. But the only reason why I specify Kobe, he's our favorite player of all time. He's to us the greatest of all time. And you'll be seeing some more Kobe memorabilia, now that Christmas passed. So, we we appreciate you guys tuning in as usual. Make sure to go tune into our guys at the Expansion Pack podcast. Denzel was just on the NBA special, so go check out them. We appreciate everyone for tuning in.
And actually, I believe we are dropping this in the new year, so by then, Down from 96 should be dropping as well.
Yes.
Down from 96. So.
Go check them out. All available on all platforms. Yeah, all platforms. Also, I forgot what I was gonna say.
I know y'all heard that track that we gave y'all a little bit in the last episode.
I dropped it. I dropped it in the pick'em too.
And that shit was heat.
Yeah. So I forgot what I was gonna say, but go enjoy the rest of the football season. So week 16, we put out our picks. So we'll definitely be dropping a pick'em for week 17. I don't know if it'll be a video or what we did for this week, but go check that out. Enjoy the rest of the football season. And we'll be back, next episode, and we'll be talking more basketball now that the basketball season has officially started. So as usual, until next time.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.